Good afternoon, everyone. If you are joining us in Ghana, it's afternoon. If you're in the U.S. or any other parts of the world, it's in the morning. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to Education USA Represent Your School program. This is our first program for the year, and we're excited to have two very powerful institutions with us. For those of you who've joined us over the years, Represent Your School is a program that brings Ghanaians who schooled in the U.S. to talk about their schools. So either we have alumni of U.S. institutions or we have current students of U.S. institutions to talk to us about their schools. This afternoon, Ghana time, we have Columbia University with us, and we have University of Buffalo with us. If today's your first time joining us, I would want to briefly tell you about Education USA so that you can appreciate our services. Education USA is a U.S. government program, and we are a network of advising centers worldwide. Currently, there are over 475 Education USA advising centers worldwide. And Ghana is blessed to have two advising centers here in Ghana. There's Education USA Accra, which used to be at the U.S. Embassy, but has moved to Osu at the moment. So that if you are walking anywhere close to the Osu High Street, all you have to look for is the Papaya restaurant, look for the ADB Bank, and then we're on top of the ADB Bank with this very big brand there that will tell you that we are Education USA. You see our signage. So now in Ghana, Education USA Accra is at Osu on top of the ADB Bank. And then Education USA Kumasi is still at ACU Consult Asokwa, very close to the Kumasi Mall. If you're wondering what we do, our main aim as Education USA is to help students in Ghana to be able to study in the US with as much funding as possible. So as we run this program, all we seek to do is to help you to relate to the Ghanaians who are studying or have studied at these different institutions. And if you are somebody who wants scholarship like the way we do, or the way I do, or my friends do, then we can hear from them so that they can tell us a lot about their schools and all it takes to be able to study there. As I said, we have the University of Buffalo. If you were young, I'm sure you used to say Buffalo if you're Ghanaian. But these days, things have gone far anyway. So when I was young, it used to be Buffalo. When I grew up, I heard it was Buffalo. I'm sure Claudia will be slanging and telling us University of Buffalo. So let's wait for her slangs. But we also have Columbia University here with us. I'd want them to introduce themselves so that we can know from them. But sit tight. We are going to ask a series of questions so that you can hear from them and know the schools very well from their perspective. So I'd want to hand over to Claudia.
Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on your location. My name is Claudia Nana Oye Deborah, and I'm excited to be here today to share my experience and also talk about my school. I'm currently enrolled in the UBMBA program, which is a STEM program, and my concentrations are in operations and supply chain consulting. I actually did my undergraduate here in Ghana. I was at the King's University College, which is an affiliated university of the University of Cape Coast, UCC. I went ahead to do my Master of Maritime Law at the University of Ghana and then transitioned into UB. I'm currently the UB Student Ambassador for Africa and all other nations as well. So I'm as a whole. Yes. Thank you.
Okay, good afternoon from Ghana. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Joe Ishan. I'm currently a U.S. Fulbright scholar affiliated with KNUST in the College of Engineering, where I'm teaching, engineering students. So I didn't have the benefits that Claudia had schooling in Ghana. I went to school in Ghana, of course, secondary school. I went to Adesada College from years. I did the O and the A level. It may be strange to some of you. But then I went to England, I went to UK and did my bachelor's in engineering, and then relocated to the US in the early 90s to do, my first master's, in management. And then, years later, I went to Columbia University in 97, and the next 7 years, of course, 2004, I graduated. So one of the things I can at least share from the student side and also from the professor side, because I've been both. The last couple of, let me say, probably a little over 20 years, I've taught at 3 different universities: Muhlenberg College in Allentown, Penn State, in Fogersville, Pennsylvania, and then East Stroudsburg University, also in northeastern Pennsylvania. So I've taught different classes: management, innovation, entrepreneurship, so it's a pleasure to be here once again and hope to get to know you much better.
Thank you very much, Prof. Well, 5 things I want to hear from you. And you can you can choose who goes first. But if you are to describe your school, please use 5 adjectives to describe your schools and tell us why you are using those adjectives.
Okay, let me go first. Columbia University, probably many people have already heard, is an Ivy League school, which means it's one of among the oldest educational institutions in the US. In fact, when I was thinking about the questions, Marilyn, I remember that a very famous Ghanaian, Dr. Kwegyir Aggrey, was a student at Columbia University, of course, centuries before my time. But Dr. Aggrey is a famous Ghanaian, in fact, probably a legend in education, who also went to Columbia. And Columbia is, of course, an old institution. In addition to being an Ivy League, it's over 250 years. And obviously, there's a new classification called global universities, and Columbia is among the top 10. In other words, this classification called global is that these are schools that attract students from all over the world because of not only the prestige, but let me also say Columbia has one of the most extensive academic programs anywhere in the world. I mean, they have a business school, they have a law school, they have a school of medicine, they have an engineering school, architecture school, journalism school. There's a theological seminary. I can't think of any academic discipline that Columbia does not have a representation. And they brag with the institution that it is the only Ivy League school in New York City. And New York City, they claim, is the most significant city in the whole world. Well, some people may debate that, but I am a proud alumni of Columbia University, and it's an old Ivy League university with extensive academic programs. Among the top ranking universities in the world, Columbia even ranks high among the Nobel laureates. So as you can hear, there are a few famous Ghanaians. I already mentioned Kweji Agri, Dr. Agri, and stuff like that. So Colombia is among one of a kind. Let me put it that way.
Wow, wow, wow. Very impressive. But I'm happy to hear that Apeji agreed. This is the first time I'm learning that he went to Columbia University. It's something I'll use anytime I'm talking about it. So thanks for letting us know.
Okay,
Because
thank
indeed, in Ghana, when it comes to education, we quote him a lot, especially when it comes to women empowerment and women educating women to become strong. We quote him a lot. So thanks for letting us know. All right,
thank you.
Claudia, 5
Okay,
adjectives.
so you said five adjectives. I would say, just like Prof mentioned, I would say that my school stands out in terms of academic excellence as well as global recognition. I would say that my school is a very diverse institution. My school has a strong international student service that is open, or even student support that is open to Africans. And I also say that my school is located at a very good spot, giving it some sort of affordability for everybody to attend. And when I say academic excellence, my school is one of the top ranked public research schools according to the American Association of Universities. So the Association of American Universities, that is the AAU. Before I went to UB, I got the opportunity to participate in their global leadership program, which really exposed me a lot to UB. It also exposed me to that kind of alumni that we have. We have a strong alumni team, which helps in our networking and being of a support to us. UB also has a career resource center that helps students when it comes to advising towards their career. We are not going to force you to do certain things or just because we have the resources, but we actually, so yes, these are the things or the adjectives I will use to describe my school.
The way you are bragging, I said 5. I've heard about 10.
I'm
This
glad you
school,
had
dear.
10 because I'm so glad you had 10 because it just tells me how smart you are and you're actually following. So I'm glad.
This school, dear. Wow.
Yes, which is the
Good to hear.
university. Again, I would emphasize my school
Yeah.
is the University of Buffalo and the state. I see the
We
SUNY
hear you. It's
system
not
for
Buffalo,
the
it's Buffalo.
university is the State University of New York. So University at Buffalo, the State University of New York. So yeah.
That's good to hear. And for those who've heard Sunni do you say Sunni?
Yes, Sunni
Yes.
is fine.
All
SUNY
right,
is
so it's
fine.
Sunni. All right. So most people watching, if you see Sunni or you hear Sunni, there are different campuses. And from what Claudia is saying, University of Buffalo is one of them. Claudia, you mentioned something about a leadership program that you did before going to
The
the school.
Global Leadership Program. Yes.
Had you enrolled already, or you did it whilst you were here in Ghana?
I did it whilst I was in Ghana pursuing my LLM in maritime law. So it was a 1 year program, which is run by Dr. Dorothy Siam as all Ghanaian. So you can, you know, tell how strong and how open it is for all of us. I had students from India, Jamaica, and I was working on projects with all these people across the world, regardless of our time difference. So it really helped. Yes.
I know I'm digressing, but I'm interested in it because you were here in Ghana and you were part of it before you actually got to the school.
Before I
You
applied for my,
applied.
yes.
Was it a paid program?
So it was more of I wish Prof was here to explain better, and I stand to be corrected. It was more of a sponsored program where
Okay,
UB sponsored me to be a part of, so I did
okay,
not actually
okay,
pay for it. But at the end of the
okay,
program, you
okay.
need to make a trip, which that you have to fund for yourself. UB does not fund that. So I think we should have a session where we have Prof to
It's
elaborate
fine. I mean,
more
I'm
on
happy
that
you mentioned it. You
program?
are part of that
Yes.
program. You've been
Yes, I
successful.
was.
It's made you go there
Yes.
eventually. So I'm sure some Ghanaians might want to
Yes.
use that process. All right. So
As
this
a
is
stepping
one way
stone.
you
Yes.
used, yes, to be able to get there. I want to come to Prof. Prof, Columbia University. Can you take us through the application process you went through because you did your master's and you did your PhD? Please take us through the process so that we can learn from you.
Yes, I mean, obviously, because of the school's reputation and prestige, the admission process, especially at the graduate level, is very, very, very competitive. I remember, but I was determined to get in. And so I saw that in one of your questions, you had somebody asked a question about the admission process in a graduate school. In a graduate school, because the PhD is typically a research degree, and you are being prepared, trained to create knowledge, you have to identify with a faculty member whose research may be aligned with yours. So this faculty member will become your mentor, and you will obviously collaborate with him along so many years. And remember, think about it. Typical master's degrees are 2 years. PhD degrees range from 4 to 7, 8, 9. I was fortunate that I did mine in 7 years. I know some of my colleagues took them 8 years, 9 years, because you have to do your dissertation and collect data, and those take a longer time to do. But yes, still, because it's a global university, the admission process is very, very competitive. But you have to be able to differentiate yourself. And let me put it this way: these schools don't just focus on your transcript, your GPA, and all
Mhm.
those metrics. No, no, no. They look at how you can, what you can, the value you can bring to the program. So, for instance, if you have an unusual background and you've done something at the master's level or even bachelor's level that is unique, a faculty member may like to get you on board and basically collaborate with you. Because remember, research degree is about creating knowledge, and creating knowledge means that you explore academic terrains that have not been explored. And so those are some of the things that a graduate student should look for. What makes your research unique? What makes your background unique? What value are you bringing to the table? And like I said, it's also very personable in the sense that if you are going to collaborate with somebody for 4 to 7 years or 8, 9 years, there must be some chemistry, right? Not only academic chemistry, but maybe psychological chemistry. So there are a little bit factors involved, and we need to be able to coach people and mentor them along those lines.
Wow. Thanks for sharing, Prof. Claudia, can you take us through the application
Yes.
process?
I'm really glad that Prof mentioned the importance of standing out as an individual and sharing with your school what you bring to the table, the value that you come with. I would digress a little bit and say that it's important to have a brand of your own, develop yourself as an individual, and be as professional as you can be. So for my school, you need to upload your academic documents, such as your transcripts, your English proficiency, your personal essays, your letter of recommendations. So for your transcripts, they are requirements. For your English language proficiency, which is also a requirement, especially if you're coming from a background where you don't have English as your first language. And for someone like me, where I came from Ghana, ask my institution for a letter to prove that I have taken all my courses in English, and that was accepted. With your SAT or ACT or your GRE scores, it is optional for my school. However, from the platforms that I have spoken on so far, I do tell people and I encourage them to go ahead to take the GRE if they have the opportunity or they can do it, because that also sets you aside as an applicant. And then with your letter of recommendation, you can always get it from people who you have engaged with, like your professors, your deans, your faculty, staff of your current institution. And that is also going to be helpful for your application process. If you're an international student who wants to transfer as well, there's a whole checklist for you. And UB does use a 4.0 grading scale, so kindly take note of that. So that is what I have to say when it comes to the application process. I also do advise people to be very timely to check their checklist when it comes to application dates, because every program has their deadline for application. You want to be on top of your game. You want to get all your documents ready and available to put them in on time, because we like to do last minute. I know my people, but I normally advise people to do it as soon as they can. Once you know that this is your plan, prepare ahead of time and then put in your application as early as you can. Also, do well to check your emails as often as you can, because all these documents are uploaded electronically onto an electronic portal. You do not submit your documents via email. Do well to check your email, because you're going to get your responses through that. Most students do not do that, because I have been there. So please take these 2 cents with you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Prof, you mentioned something that I want to pick on. You mentioned relationships with professors.
Yes.
Mentioned you had to do that before the application. When you got to school, you had to continue that relationship with them. We normally, in most undergraduate programs in Ghana, especially if it's a public school and there are lots of students in the class, most people will sit in the class and never talk. So sometimes having a relationship with a professor is something they really need to work on before they can bridge that handicap and be able to be like a regular student who walks into a professor's office and have a chat and work with the professor. Can you share your experiences with us, both you and Claudia, as to how you developed the relationship with professors at your various institutions and how it positively affects the students' work when they get to the US?
Okay. I'm glad Claudia mentioned all the uploading of the transcripts and the documents. Remember, I went to Colombia in the mid-90s, right? When the world was not like we have today, right? I mean, Colombia at that time was not, it didn't have a system, a platform where you could upload your transcript. So most of the admission process, application process, was characterized by hard copy mailing to the departments for them to get the hard copy, scrutinize it, and then make a decision. So all of those things are great. I am glad Claudia talked about it. But let me emphasize the personal relationship side, because you are going to work with a faculty member. You are more or less going to be like a research assistant. So what happens is, before you are admitted, there is an anticipation of not only of the academic discipline or the domain, but also a specific sub-discipline within the domain. Are you with me? So for instance, because I had worked in London, in advertising, I worked for MTV in London, and I had a broadcasting background. I thought I was more interested in advertising. So I had went to Columbia's catalog and identified a professor whose research interest was in advertising. This guy was a famous professor. He's written on the Oscars, on the Grammys, all of those different things because I was interested in advising. And so we developed the relationship, we exchanged information. And remember, this was way before email. So you can imagine. But we developed the relationship. And then I remember another professor also saw my application and said, send me a writing sample, right? And think about it. I was coming from not only Stony Brook to Columbia, but they still wanted to validate my writing and communication skills. And lo and behold, I had done a business plan as a master's student at Stony Brook. And so he said, send me a writing sample. I sent it to him, and he liked what he read. And later on, I heard that he was very influential. And he told one of another that you got to get this guy into the program. And basically, that's how I landed. So, and I remember this was the day of snail mail. I wasn't hearing from Colombia, and basically, it was getting to March and April. So think about it. I was living in New York City in Queens. I've made my way to campus. Believe me, I wanted to get you so bad. To the director of graduate studies, and I introduced myself. Oh, she said, I mailed your letter yesterday. I said, I will believe it when I see it. She said, no. Believe me, if you don't get the letter in 2-3 days, come back. And she told me, you see these files? I saw file folders from the floor till about 8 feet in the air. He said, all of these people are rejects. They couldn't get in. You know these 11, 12 ones on the right? This is those who are coming in. He pulled one, and that was mine. And so I was happy. But all of this is to say that it is important to cultivate a relationship with an existing professor who you are going to work with potentially. And those are the people who be your cheerleaders, because they go to a meeting with about 20 different faculty members. They discuss the students. They discuss their backgrounds. Remember, in a place like Columbia, everybody has a 3.8, 3.9, 4.0 GPA. So you don't stand out when it comes to transcripts or GPA. You may have to stand out with other things. And so they discuss, they argue, they vouch for, they cheerlead, and then they select a few among several hundred. So the relationship, I believe, is critical because you need a cheerleader in the room for you. And that's my experience.
Claudia.
I believe that it is important to have a relationship with a professor, or be in touch with a professor or anybody at all in my school, because this then makes you more comfortable when you are putting in your application and you're probably feeling left out, you're not hearing anything. There's someone you can always reach out to. And one thing I really enjoyed about my school was how quick their responses were. Once you send an email about something, they're going to get back to you within 1 to 2 working days. They don't leave you hanging. Like, we have students, and then there's also a portal where you can interact with student ambassadors like myself. So if you're not hearing from your academic advisor as an enrolled student who is getting prepared to go, then you can always touch base with a student ambassador on Unibuddy, which is a portal created specifically for that. I think that is very important as well, because if you have questions, you can always reach out to somebody. It makes you more comfortable. And in this age of AI, some people apply to certain schools and they are very someone from there, it makes it, can I be heard?
I can hear you now. You are
Okay, great.
breaking up. I had
Great. So
AI.
we have, yes, in this age of AI, most parents are not comfortable with leaving their kids or their children to travel alone until they actually know that there's an established relationship and there's an actual person they can always reach out to. So I think that really helps. And it places a face behind the school where you can actually reach out to someone. It makes us comfortable, it makes your family comfortable, and it also makes you feel like there's a community for you to be a part of. So that's my 2 cents on that.
Yeah. Let me also add that the PhD program is a little bit more demanding than a master's program, not only in terms of the length of time that it will take you to get your doctorate. Like I said, it ranges from 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years, right? Depending on your dissertation. But in a lot of master's programs, students pay fees, especially in MBA, maybe others. But in a PhD program, typically, because they are relatively few, the school expects you to be like a research assistant or a teaching assistant or a little of both. I was a teaching assistant at Columbia. So they see themselves, the school sees themselves as investing in you and giving you money to survive. So the sorting out process, the screening process, the evaluation process is a little bit more demanding because they want to make sure that when they bet on you, you can deliver and graduate. Because let me tell you, somewhere in third or fourth year at Columbia, a few of my mates, couldn't go on. It was difficult. And there were other unpredictable issues that came in and they couldn't continue the program. So nobody could have foreseen these unpredictable forces, obviously, 3 or 4 years earlier. So when the admission process is going on, there are a lot of all these intricate issues and questions that inform and guide the decision-making process. And so that may be one of the reasons why, it's a little bit more demanding and it's more scrutinized. Let me put it that way. Yeah.
So much for the insight.
That is why relationships are important.
Yeah.
Okay, let me end with that. Yeah.
And indeed, if you have a professor you've worked with and the professor knows you, as you said, it helps for you to stand out when they are talking about the different students they want to bring in to join them. So thanks. Something everybody's waiting to hear. What are the funding opportunities when it comes to your institutions?
Let me say, is it Claudia or for me?
Both of you. So
Which one?
anyone can
Claudia,
go.
you go first.
Okay. So for me, as a graduate student and a student ambassador for my school, I know that there is and there are funding opportunities. So we currently launched the African Leaders Yield Fund, which is an automatic 5,000 US dollars scholarship for every African student that gets admitted into my school. So once you provide your I-20 and you get your admission and provide your documents and everything, you automatically have a $5,000 scholarship awaiting for you. That aside, we do have merit-based scholarships that is dependent on it's fully merits. It could be your transcripts, your essays, your recommendations, your interview process and all that. So that's merit based. Apart from that, we do have student assistantships, graduate assistantships, and all of on-campus jobs that I don't want to use the word jobs, but on-campus assistantships that you can take. With these things that I have mentioned, there are portals where students can go on to put in their application and interview for these roles. some of the student assistantship and the teaching assistantships do not fund entirely your education or your course or program. However, as someone who is currently a student ambassador and a student assistant, this has been of a huge benefit for me because it might not cover my tuition, but it's taking care of a lot of things. So I went to my school even without the African Leaders Yield Fund. I didn't have any scholarship at that time. I got enrolled into my school, got admission, went through the process, went through my visa and all of that, got there, and I got these opportunities to be a student assistant, a teaching assistant, a student ambassador, and I'm benefiting from all these roles. I've been to a few schools since I've been here advocating for my school or encouraging people and meeting with admitted students. And funding has been one of their biggest. I understand, I get it. However, I like to encourage people that education in the USA is not cheap. And I like to tell people to see it as a lifelong investment. If you are investing into something, then you know that it's definitely going to yield something. So until you are ready to commit to it, you are ready to take a step in the right direction, then if you're not ready to do all of that, I'm sorry, it may probably not be for you. So you make a move to earn a move. That's how I see it. Because when I went to Buffalo, if I had been timid, if I had been in my shell, I had to stand out. I had to be unique. I told myself that I am here and I'm here to make it. I'm not going back home. It's not to say that I didn't have days where I cried or my low moments and all of that, but I knew what I was up to. I knew what I wanted to do. I focused on the goal. And so in every room that I stepped into, I made a difference. I made a mark. Not to say that I was loud, but I made a mark in the right direction. And so that's what I have to say about funding. The opportunities are there, the students' assistantships are there. They won't come finding you. You have to go for them. And you need to stand out in order to get that. So that's my take on that.
This is really, really, really good. Why I'm saying it's really good is that most people who come to us, either Education USA Accra, Education USA Kumasi, the first thing they ask for is funding. And if they realize they won't get funding, they lose interest. But here you are saying that as you were going to school, you didn't have any funding available,
No.
but you got funding when you got to campus. At what point did the funding start coming?
So I got into school in August, and in September, I enrolled to as a student assistant for a professor. In that same month, or towards the end of that month, I got another recommendation as a student assistant to the Office of Global Outreach Program at the School of Pharmacy. So that was even not in my school, but I was recommended. And there was an opening, and someone said, "Oh, I think this person is fit for that." Because I was standing out. I would present, and you would think I've been in. There were days where I walk into the class and people feel like, "Wait, are you saying it's your first actual degree program?" I'm like, yes. The global programs I did was an online program. And even with that, I had students around the world, not people who are currently enrolled in UB. So I made a mark. I stood out in everything that I did. I kept my head high. And so I think that is what happened. And then at the end of the first semester, there was one row that ended in December. And then coming into the second semester, I got the opportunity and I got recommended as a student as ambassador for my school. So I'm currently a student assistant for the enrollment office, and I'm a student assistant in the School of Pharmacy Department of Global Outreach. So one thing you need to also know that as an international student, you have a maximum working hour for the week for 20 hours. So with these two roles, I had to balance and make it work. There were days that pharmacy wasn't that demanding. There were days that enrollment. So you need to strike a balance between both, and then that is going to help you to keep your F1 visa. You do not want to do anything to jeopardize your visa, because that is going to be giving you a red light to be coming home. So you need to take that into consideration. So that is how that worked for me.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Now I'll come to you, Prof. Prof, please throw some light on funding issues for us.
Okay, well, let me be candid and say that education with Ivy League schools, and remember, this is in the context of me some 30 years ago, right? It's expensive. And not only that, education is expensive. New York City is expensive to live, right? So think about it. You are not only thinking about your tuition, which for Ivy League schools, are about 70, 80,000 currently. At that time, it may have been less, but it was still among the top. You are also thinking about your living expenses. I was fortunate. I didn't live in New York City. I lived in Pennsylvania and commuted to Columbia daily. I remember there was one class that my class closed at about 10 p.m. on campus. Yes. And the bus that would take me back to Pennsylvania was about 10:30. And I had to take the subway from Columbia, which is Broadway, Upper West Side, to Port Authority and catch my bus. And I wasn't going to make it. So my wife and I had some friends in the Bronx. I would go and spend the night with them and then go home the next morning. Are you with me? So
Yes.
there were times once a week, at least 1 or 2 semesters, that I couldn't go home because the bus left me at 10:30. I would sleep with a friend because I can't afford a hotel. I'm on a student budget. So again, it's expensive. But let me come back. I was a TA and I was also a work study student. It didn't pay enough for you to pay the tuition, so you supplement with school loans. Remember, there is one of my wife's colleagues, at her office. He has a big poster and said, if you think education is expensive, try ignorance. So this is all to say that, education is not cheap, especially with Ivy League schools in the US, especially in cities like New York. But between some combination of school loans, teaching assistantships, research assistantships, you can get by. And I was fortunate because of my background as MBA student, I was able to be a part-time teacher, part-time tutor. Even at Stony Brook, I taught chemistry, right, to undergraduates and made about $12 an hour at that time. But you have to make it work somehow. But let me put it this way. You can make it because others have made it, and there's always a way out to survive. You are not the first person going to the US to go to school without funding, and you definitely are not going to be the last. But don't let the lack of funding or the lack of access to certain maybe resources deter you from going to the US. If you don't succeed in the US, I don't think you will succeed anywhere else. Let me put it that way.
Wow.
So, yeah.
That's a great statement. If you don't succeed in the US, I don't think you succeed anywhere else. I do believe you though, because the US education enriches your life in so many ways, and I actually do believe it.
And remember,
yes.
remember that I was a student in Ghana, of course, not university, but a student in UK as a university student before US. So I know the disparity between UK education and the US education. I will still vouch and say the opportunities are better in US than UK, even though funding, may be restricted. But the world has changed, right?
Sure.
From what I'm hearing today, The institutions are adopting a posture that once you are admitted and you go into the program, it's their responsibility to fund you. So I know, for instance, I've heard about Harvard. I don't know about how far it's true. Once you are admitted into their program, whether it's PhD or graduate level, they believe it behooves on them to support you because you have been admitted. Unlike our time 30, 40 years ago, where your admission may be predicated on access to funding. So the world is changing, and some of these schools are getting a lot of money from endowment funds to support. Let me say one thing that I experienced when I was at Columbia. I was there and I got an email from one professor in another school altogether, School of International and Public Affairs. We call it SIPA. These are the people that prepare people for ambassadorial, foreign service kind of positions, right? He called me and I went to him and he said, "Do I know anybody from Malawi?" I said, "No." And Malawi, is an African country, but it's one of not the common ones like Kenya, Nigeria, anyway. So he said to me, there is a scholarship of about $7,000 to $8,000 for a Malawian who will go into Columbia Business School. And if I knew anybody, I should bring them. I said, "No, me, I'm from Ghana." You don't know anybody from Malawi. So there are all of these maybe bequests there, endowments there. I encourage people to do their research. There may be some under a stone that maybe they will turn it and you gain access. So there opportunities are there.
Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing this with us. You've said a lot about your schools. I want to ask, what were your best moments? What were your worst moments?
Claudia, you
Claudia,
go
do you want to go?
Yes. I think I'll share my worst moments first, in as much as my high times were exciting. So I'll save that for the latter. So my worst moment was as someone with a law background, it should automatically tell you that I've always been more of a qualitative person than a quantitative person. Give me books to read and summarize. Give me a room of people. When I'm not ready, I would speak. Give me something qualitative. I got you. But this is me doing the quantitative course. And I'm doing this because I want to be stronger and enhance myself in that area as well, so I can find a balance. So I remember in my first accounting class, oh my, I wept like a child. And I kept asking myself, is it the best decision I made? Did I make a mistake? Do I want to go home? Am I in the right place? The professor kept going on and on and on. And I'm like, no, I'm lost. I'm not going to make it. Right after that, I took my first statistics class. And that was also a whole roller coaster on its own. I don't want to go into it, but those were my worst moments. My high moments were when I heard about the office hours that my school provides, where you can actually go in and sit in with your professor for them to go over things with you over and over again until you get it, where you can meet their teaching assistants and either on Zoom or in person. So hearing that, I'm like, in Ghana, once you're told you need to see your professor, you're worried, you're scared. Did you do something? Did something happen? But in my school, the office hours were my highlights. The second thing was the kind of people that I was working with. I realized the importance of collaborating. The US system for my school is more of a collaborative system than a competition system. So you're put into teams to work on projects together, to do things together. And you know that working in teams is hard. So that enhances your leadership skills, your team building skills. It makes you work hard. It makes you go out of your comfort zone. And then it tells you that you have a support team. There are people you can lean on when you feel like the world is collapsing. Another highlight was when I walked into UB and I saw my face on the UB wall. I did not anticipate that, but I was so excited about that. And that was because I had partnered with UB on a couple of I had volunteered with UB over the years during their experiential programs in Ghana. I would just go and serve, and I never knew that was going to end me on the UB wall or the UB website. So I'm like, oh my God, Mama, we made it. Come see me. And then my first snow happened. That was also a highlight for me because it was beautiful. In as much as I didn't like the cold, it was so beautiful. And you could do things. In as much as it's snowing, it's cold, you can still go out and have activities, have coffee, have tea, stay warm, stay safe, go skating. It was all fun. So I think I'm oversharing,
Happy
but
to
yeah,
hear that.
those are
Yeah.
my highlights.
Yeah, of course. My highest moment was the day I defended my dissertation. And because the couple of days before defending, I didn't sleep. I was so scared because my advisor, who is a great guy, I still am in touch with him sometimes, right? He managed, he is like the choreographer, let me put it this way, and let me be blunt. Academia is also a highly politicized environment, right? Remember, you need about 4 or 5 people to decide on your dissertation defense that you have passed, and they all have to sign, right? So your advisor has to choreograph these people and take the lead in getting their mind to all agree. Can you imagine you defend and 2 of them say no and 2 say yes? So for me, the highest point was the day, and this is what happened. I couldn't sleep for 3 days because my advisor brought his mentor at Harvard in the 70s to my committee, and I was scared of this guy. This guy is so brilliant. He has 2 PhDs, one from MIT and one from Princeton. And I said, why did you bring him? He said, Joe, don't worry. I had this thing with him. He said, don't worry. You are okay. I've read your dissertation. It's good, but you got to listen to their questions. So he prepared me for that. Even then, I still couldn't sleep for 3 days. So the day I went to, he encouraged me. He said, Joe, did you do the research? I said, yes, I did. He said, so nobody, and this is where he really broke it down for me. He said, you did the research. Nobody knows more about this research than you because you did it for these last couple of years. So regardless of the questions they will ask, you did it and defined what you found, and that's it, right? Even so, then I still didn't believe him because I've never gone through this. And so I went, I defended, they asked me questions here and there. Then I still have one question that I didn't answer. He asked me a question I didn't answer. I thought about it 3 or 4 days before. This is the guy with the 2 PhDs, MIT and Princeton, right? So he asked me, and I answered to the best that I could. And then they kicked me out of the room for about 10 minutes. They talked and talked. And then they called me back after 10 minutes. And then my advisor didn't even it's the first and one of the siblings. Congratulations, Dr. Ishan. And I knew that Jesus is Lord. So that was the highest moment. Of course, there were others as well, the people I worked with. But my lowest moment was about 2 years before. My previous advisor, resigned. He said he couldn't carry on with me. There were so many demands on him. He was traveling, and I also wanted to finish, remember. And I think I was among my classmates. I was 1979. I was among the first, if not the first, to complete my dissertation. Even though at that time I was married and had a child, just like a few of my colleagues in the PhD program. So his resignation, maybe it was all well and good because to be an advisor, your students have to have access to you because they need your direction, they need your guidance, and if it's not there, the students can be delayed or it will devalue the process. So the high point was the day I defended my dissertation. The low point was when this previous advisor, I couldn't work with. So, yeah.
Wow. It's good hearing from you. And I'm sure our audience are also picking a lot of great pieces of information they can work with. All too soon, we have to end our program. We couldn't start early because we had some technical hitches, but we've learned so much and we are wrapping up. I want to say a few things before I come to you for your final words. To our audience and to everybody listening to us, we want to say thank you for joining us. We'll be coming your way once a month, and it would be the third Friday of every month. So please note this. The time would be from 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. We've gone beyond 5 p.m. today because we didn't start early. But for each program, we'll be bringing different panelists from different schools. And if you have any questions, please type in the comment section and we will get back to you after the program because we want to wrap up now. But we'll get in touch with you if you're able to type in your questions here. I want to, all right, Prof.
Hi.
I want to be able to take your final words. I'll take Prof first and then Claudia, you end it for us. But thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure.
So let me just
Any
say
final
that
words for us?
final words. The US is a great place to be educated. Education in the US, it is not by chance that the United States has the most Nobel laureates in the whole world, and they have some of the best schools in the whole world. So for Ghanaians, I think the US presents one of the greatest opportunities in education. But like many things, it comes with considerable challenges in our day, funding, and all of those things. But you are also learning from those of us who have blazed the trail, and those before us. So it's doable. Let me use Bawumia's favorite phrase. It's possible, right? So go ahead, do the best you can, and go through, because I believe, like I said, if you don't prosper intellectually, economically, financially in the US, I don't think there's anywhere in the world that you will prosper much better than US. Let me end by that.
Thank you so much. Claudia.
Okay, my final words to all of you watching me is to say that if I have been able to do it, you can do it too. Your takeaways from this should be that it's important to know that studying abroad is expensive, but with determination, discipline, hard work, diligence, you would be able to do it. Do well to pursue your dreams, do well to go for what you want. Do not be discouraged. Don't stop going because someone is telling you their experience. Know that your experiences are unique to you and your story is unique to you. So you can also do it. It might not be the same as mine, but it is possible to study abroad. Keep going. Don't give up. Don't forget to be humble, not timid. Humble, not timid. Don't forget to be grateful to everyone that is going to help you during the journey, even when you are there, during the journey, before, very important. And also, regardless of your religious background, do well to be of service to God and service to humanity. Put your best foot out there, be your true, authentic self, and shine as bright as you can. Thank you for having me. And please do well to come to UB. UB is so open. Come to UB, apply, check your deadlines, put in your application. If you have questions, reach out and we'll take it from there.
Thank you so much. Greatest of thanks to both of you for gracing our program with your presence. It's been great. I've learned so much myself, and I'm sure our audience have done the same. We look forward to interacting more with you on different programs. And to our audience, just like I said, reach out to Education U.S.A. Accra or Education U.S.A. Kumasi, and let's help you to be able to get a school of your choice in the U.S. Thank you very much, and see you next month, third week of April. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much too. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye for now.